The Clippers traded for James Harden, which is good. I'm getting a lot of shit from my Lakers friends. I will say that.
Well, the ones that uh, I respect of Laker fans that I'm friends with, they didn't think the Clippers were going to be able to get James Harden.
Without Terance.
They were concerned about it. No, they just thought straight up, regardless of Terance Mann, it's not happening. You guys aren't getting
Mm-hmm.
Harden. That's a pipe dream. So there was a little "I told you so" text earlier today, and a certain group of Lakers fans that had to wear it for me.
That's good. Good.
I'm excited for this though, Chuck. And we'll get into it obviously, but we've been talking about it all summer. There was a tweet last night on our CND Twitter account saying, "Yeah, for all you people who said stop talking about James Harden this summer, gee, I guess it's a good thing we did, huh? We prepared everyone for this. It
Yeah,
sure
I
seemed like we were
guess.
doing our job. I don't know."
Yeah, it's interesting. Mike Dang on the stream says, "What's up?" We got a couple people in here. This is an impromptu clips and dip episode. We're talking James Harden of the Clippers. We're just doing a live. We'll have the audio up later for everybody. We're gonna make Adam cut out those initial minute or so and then put that YG clip in. But I mean, chaos for Clipper Nation, I guess, a little bit. Late night, we get the Woj bomb. For those of you unaware, the full package. Clippers got James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Philippe Petrusev, who I know nothing about. The 76ers got a 2026 first round pick via OKC, the Clippers 2028 first round pick, a 2029 pick swap, which I don't know how I feel about that. 2024 and 2029 second round picks, then Batum, Morris, Covington, and the newest Clipper to be traded, KJ Martin.
And I think we should start by saying, first of all, should this
Oh.
trade go through, we made this mistake before with Malcolm Brogdon.
That's
Should
actually
everything
very
be
true.
accurate from Adrian Wojnarowski, we'll operate under the understanding that, yes, it likely is going through here. And I was thinking this summer, should I grow my beard out until they get James Harden? Should I keep it growing until they get James Harden? But you know what? I kind of like it now. But we need to respect the guys who are no longer Clippers here and show
Absolutely.
some love to
Damn.
Marcus Morris, to Robert Covington, to Nicholas Batum, KJ Martin, not here for very long, but
Hey,
Nicholas
he was
Batum,
great
we
in the
can
intro video. Is he the first player to ever be signed that summer in the team schedule release video and then traded less than a week into the season?
probably.
He
That's
might
probably
be.
considering we've only had these videos the last few years. But
Right.
Nicholas Batum was somebody when he came to the Clippers, a lot of people had doubts about if he could rejuvenate his career, if he'd be able to make the team when he came in training camp after he was bought out by the Charlotte Hornets. And he became one of the most beloved Clippers. Batum Battalion assemble one last time. I saw that tweet out there. The Batum family is beloved by Clipper Nation.
Shout
Uh,
out Lily. If you ever interacted with Lily on Twitter, she also, none of the guys knew about this, which Lily tweeted out. She tweeted that post from Drew Holiday's wife about how you're just sleeping and then you wake up and you have to go to a new city and start a new life without it. And
yeah.
Lob Murray mentioned earlier in the year that the Clippers were trying to avoid that scenario here, but apparently there was some phone call on Monday that James was talking about. So hearts out to the Batum family. They were part of, I think, one of the cooler fan movements the Clippers have ever had. The embracing of the Batum Battalion, Brian Seaman helping boost that out. Just shout out Joseph Rye Ward. He was there when Will and I think Brian Cullen and I, Will had a couple of glasses of wine and was shouting about how Batum was going to be great. And that's where Batum Battalion came. So that was a moment in Clippers time. That was a wonderful time for the Clippers. Nico gave it his all. Just tough.
And
Just
hit big shots from the get go. I think it was a shot against the Denver Nuggets early in that 2021 season. I called him Saint Nick. It happened around Christmas because that season started later after the bubble. He hit a big shot there. The shot against the Phoenix Suns, where Paul George trucked Devin Booker and kicked it out to Nicholas Batum early in the season. He had a knack for knocking down big shots. We were just talking about how we all had faith that if the ball had gotten to him, he would have knocked it down the other night against the Utah Jazz. So he's an all-time fan favorite, and I thought he was one of the glue guys for this team
Absolutely.
for a couple of seasons, and he'll be remembered very fondly. And as much as people have derided Marcus Morris and how things have soured with him,
Sure.
let's not forget how big of a move it was when they brought him in February or March of 2020. And there was an arms race for him with the Los Angeles Lakers. They were in on him. We didn't know who would actually come through. And he became a Clipper. And this was someone who hit 7 3-pointers in a game 7 against the Dallas Mavericks after struggling early on in that series in 2021 to propel them to the second round. If not for that, they don't make it to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in team history, where he also was very effective without Kawhi Leonard after he went down in the second round. So Marcus Morris, I think also you got to tip your cap
Then it
for a
went
lot of the
wildly
dirty
downhill.
work that he did during that playoff run, along with big shots. And I hope people think of that stuff more often than just the last 3 months of last season when he was a Clipper much longer than that.
Yeah, I agree. It was rough. And then you move it on to Rocco. We just never got to see it. We saw it the opening game this season, the second game. It just, we never got to see it work like I think a lot of fans wanted it to and thought it was going to.
And he holds the franchise record for 3-pointers made in a game. He had a 40-point game when he first came over from the Portland Trailblazers. And credit to him. I think the best thing you can say about Rocco is what a pro he was all of last season. There's free Rocco chants going on, and he never made a stink about it whatsoever. The fact he wasn't playing and even came into this season more motivated with the right mindset, just an absolute pro. And now he's headed back to Philly, where obviously he's been before and he'll be comfortable there. But so
also,
they're at least in a good situation, you can say. They're still on a team that's competing in the Eastern Conference now.
I think so. And one more note on Robert Covington. Clipper Vlad, who, if you've ever been to a Clippers game, you've seen Vlad there, I'm sure. Rocco signed Clipper Vlad's free Rocco custom Clippers jersey, which is, I think, one of the coolest pieces of memorabilia you could have. But let's talk about the team now and the trade. We kept Terance Mann, which is huge, shows the belief in Terance, I guess. We traded every single power
If you didn't
forward.
think Terance was going to get 30 minutes this season, this absolutely opens up that possibility. This is huge for him.
I hope so. So
they have to. Who else can they play, right? Chuck? They don't have any other options. It's happening.
I think. I mean, it has to happen. You're right. We're a lot of people are now. We don't know when Harden's going to debut. Maybe against the Lakers. That would be hilarious.
Woj reported that he might be in the building tonight. He was so excited to be coming to the Clippers. He wanted to fly out to LA. But again, the trade has yet to be made official.
Joseph Fry Ward and I did a whole hour and 10 minutes after this Brogdon trade didn't go down. So I hope we don't have to redo this. But Miles Johnson on the stream. If you want to hang out with us, we're on Twitter at Clippers Pod. We're on YouTube at Clippers Podcast. He said the fact we kept Terance, Norman, Bones is amazing and really lifts our upside. I do think I'm very happy we kept Bones. Norm, I think, is maybe not super long for this team, given the kind of redundancy. We have no power forwards now. We have all these guards. It's just going to be interesting to figure out that fit, I think, on the second unit. I'm not against keeping Norm. But
they did get PJ Tucker, and I know Philly fans, and I've listened to them. They were down on him last season because it looked like offensively he just didn't have much to offer anymore. He was shying away from even taking those patented corner threes that he's been so good with in his career. But defensively, he was still effective on that end. So I'm not going to give up on a guy when they said the exact same thing about Nicholas Batum, that he was done. They said the same thing about Reggie Jackson. We have seen guys come to the Clippers and be rejuvenated. It's happened. So they have him. They have
I hope
Terance
so.
Mann. You know, somebody else who may get back into the rotation, and I'd be very confident in him being out there on the court, Amir Coffey, a guy who
He got
was
brought up a bunch on Twitter. People were like, so we kept Amir, which is his confidence has been really up and down. He's had such a weird Clippers tenure. He's done everything the team has asked for. But so yeah, now it's like Amir, let's more time for Amir.
went from a guy who was traded in the Malcolm Brogdon trade to now maybe being a much more valuable piece, like we saw him being used a couple seasons ago when he had that great January and was the best player on the Clippers team, the most consistent player, I think, averaging an efficient 14 plus his defense for an entire month for them when they needed him desperately.
And so let's talk about the big aspect of this. James Harden with the Clippers. You can have issues about the fit. I think that's fair. I think Jamal Christopher tweeted this, but you can't have issues about who he is as a player. That's just the qualifier. Like, as a player, James Harden is a very good player. He's the best passer we've had on the team.
To me, that's what makes the fit great. The fit's always
I
been
think people
good.
were worried.
It's baggage. It's him being on his fourth team in the last 22 months that people are more concerned about.
I agree, but I think also some people are concerned about the Russ and James Harden starting thing. It feels like Clippers Twitter is already like, let's bring Russ off the bench. Let's have Terance in there. I think they're going to start both.
I think they'll initially start both, but I have been saying my biggest point all summer for one of the reasons to get James Harden has been it gives you the opportunity, I've said it time and time again, to bring Russell Westbrook off the bench, which I think he's better suited for, because then the offense is centered around him. He'll get more looks. He can run the show. It's more of a familiar, comfortable position for Russ to be in. Said it a million times. We literally did a Russ show or a James Harden great debate show on this channel. If you want to go back and check that out now, I have been keying in on James Harden and all the reasons he could help this team for some time. I think the fit is spectacular next to Kawhi and Paul George. If you have to move Russ to the bench and bring Terance Mann in with the starters, you make that move. Terance Mann was just named a starter. So that's a little messy now, a little weird. There was a different situation with a different roster, a very different roster than what we have today. But I don't think, while initially they'll likely start Russ and James Harden, maybe, we'll see. I think by game 82, we'll see different rotations and lineups from Coach Lue, and it could be Russ coming off the bench.
You don't think we get the 10-game Ty Lue sample size to start this thing off?
That's what I'm saying. Initially, I think we'll get that. By game 82, it could look very different, and Russ could be coming off the bench.
I have a feeling it will. Yes. I think by game 82, it'll be different. I mean, this does – I was on the side – if you didn't watch the debate episode, I was wearing aviators. I don't know why I wore them, because I guess I wanted to look tough during the debate.
Chuck Yeager,
but
baby.
I was on the side – yeah. I was on the side that James Harden absolutely raises the Clippers' floor. I think if you're somehow so blinded by the off-court stuff that you can't see that, you're maybe lost in this whole process, right? Like, I have a lot of the same reservations a lot of fans do about his off-court stuff. I think most rational people do. But the on-court stuff, as a whole, you can't pretend like the Clippers are worse now.
Well, to me,
I just don't think you can actually think the Clippers are a worse basketball team now.
In this case, raising their floor raises their ceiling in two different ways. One, I just think you're better off in a series if the Clippers are fully healthy. James Harden is not the primary option. He's not the secondary option. He's the third option. And that's pretty unbelievable to have him in a playoff series as a third option. Back to his OKC days, really. Or back to one first-round series he had with the Brooklyn Nets when he, Kyrie, and KD were actually all healthy. For those that are so concerned with his cold streaks in the playoffs at times, and it's at times because he's had spectacular, plenty of them, huge playoff games. He just did against the Boston Celtics in the second round last season. They had multiple 40-point games and won them that game one without Joel Embiid. Like, to only look at his blemishes or his
Sure.
off nights in the playoffs really discounts how great he has been at times in the playoffs too, and he's going to be the third option. But also,
Exactly.
the reason I say it raises their floor and their ceiling, it raises their floor in the regular season, which gets you a higher seed, which raises your ceiling because only top 3 seeds outside of the 95 Houston Rockets have won the championship over the last 30, 35 years now.
I think there was a great tweet. I think it was Paul Heedley who said, like, if you're worried about James Harden in the playoffs, if the Clippers are healthy, he's the third option, maybe fourth, depending what the vibe is and the momentum is. If Kawhi and PG are hurt, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Kawhi and PG are
Well,
hurt, because then it's not, things are a lot tougher that scenario. So James Harden being the number one option, as with Kawhi and PG being hurt, a lot better than when we had Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris as the number one option, but still not ideal. So it's kind of moot anyway.
look, if they're both hurt, yes. But if one of them is out for a brief amount of time, a few games, you can get by in a series with Kawhi and James Harden and Russell Westbrook, or Paul George, James Harden and Russell
Mm-hmm.
Westbrook, or just one of those guys and James Harden. They would have, look, we all thought they would have won last season in the first round against a Phoenix team with KD if they just had Kawhi Leonard available with how good he looked the
Right.
first 2 games. They have an opportunity now where it increases your margin for error or fluky injury things happening of you just being able to get by, weather the storm for a little bit until those guys can come back. Ultimately, yeah, to win a championship, they're going to need everybody. But you could get by in a first round series with guys banged up when you have this much high end talent compared to what we've seen in past years.
Totally. Now, focusing on things like this terrifying regular season when it comes to scheduling, Alan asked in the stream, so who's playing power forward? They traded all of them away. Fair question
They
after this
didn't trade a
trade.
guy away who was the starting power forward, who was named the starting power forward. That was Terance Mann. He's still on the team.
Sure. They traded everyone but one power
The
forward away. So I
starter,
think this is a fair
the guy who
question.
was named the starter. I think that's important to say.
But it's a fair question.
Sure, except like the guy who you want playing power forward the most is still on the team.
Correct, but we still need, like, so is it, I'm assuming you're saying it's PJ then. PJ's the backup 4?
Yeah, and then Amir Coffey.
Kobe
I think
Brown?
you're okay.
No
No,
love?
I do love that. Kobe Brown, this opens up minutes for him, Chuck. This is your guy. That's perfect, actually, because
I hope so. I hope he proves me a little bit right. And he will get more minutes than Musa now.
he just hit his first shot, NBA shot. It was a 3-pointer. So I think
Winning basketball.
the minutes crunch and the consolidation happened. The happening of the consolidation finally occurred for this Clippers team that everybody was asking for. And some think what? They overdid it. They overcompensated with too much consolidation because, let's see, Nicholas Batum, who we love, who was giving them good minutes already this season, yes. But this is somebody who was openly talking about retirement after this season. Robert Covington, a guy they didn't use much at all last season, is gone. Yes, he was starting, and it looked like that situation was going to be different this year. But they didn't use him much at all last year. Marcus Morris, most people didn't want to be playing. Those are the guys you lost to bring in James Harden, and you were able to keep Terance Mann, who was named the starter, the 5th starter. Whether you want to call him the power forward or not. If what we're saying is going to happen in the starting lineup with Russ and James Harden in there, that means Kawhi and Paul George are moving up positions. So therefore, why are you worried about
Right.
the power forward position when it's going to be Kawhi Leonard when it's James Harden and Russ in the backcourt? I I I think
Because you still need bodies.
of course you do, but if we learned anything last season, you can't have too much depth.
True. I mean, and your point about the Rocco thing too, it was like, we've talked about in this podcast, a lot of Clippers podcasts have talked about it. If the Clippers weren't going to use these guys, then what are we doing, right? Like, we all wanted them to use Rocco and Wingstop, and we wanted that, but they refused to. So we never got that. So if they're not using them, this is where we're at. We kept the guy that we are using with Terance Mann. I'm interested to see how Ty figures this out. I'm wondering what small ball looks like, how long they'll
For
take
people
to
who are
figure
saying
that
no,
out.
Terance Mann was technically the shooting guard out there. It's like, guys, he was going to be guarding Markkanen. That was the point that Coach Lou made. That was one of the guys. His versatility on defense is why they wanted him in the starting lineup. He was going to be guarding a lot of the bigger guys out there. It was matchup dependent. So it goes back to more positionless basketball, versatility on defense, and Terance Mann can play the power forward. This
Totally.
it's not an
Absolutely.
issue.
Someone brought up a good point about the bench because you got Bones, Norm, Mann will be fun off the bench. Mann's going to have a lot of responsibility off the bench defensively with Bones and Norm being the 1 and 2. Not that Bones is bad at defending, but Terance is going to be called along quite a bit. But the bench unit has some interesting properties. Now, I like that they got the vet and Plumlee there to kind of hopefully keep things a little settled if things go wonky. But Eric Bui has a good question here. Shout out Eric Bui. He made this fantastic background that you're seeing right now. He said, "Do you see Russ or Harden getting more run with the second unit?" Got to be Russ.
Yeah,
right. Like on the whole, it's got to be Russ. That's a terrifying guy to run that second unit in a good way.
It was just mentioned by Coach Lou that he wanted to pair him up more with Norm and Bones more with the starters. So there was already a glimpse into the vision of how they wanted to use Russell Westbrook. That's why I wouldn't put it totally past him to just start bringing him off the bench, because obviously Russ was for this move. He and James Harden like each other.
Everyone
He's
was.
willing.
PG and Kawhi.
Right.
Like, I've seen some tweets. Someone tweeted out like, "Oh, PG and Kawhi hate this move." No, they don't. Why on earth would that's an insane take. Like, that's truly the wildest shit I think I've seen on this whole James Harden trade, is that PG and Kawhi don't like this trade.
But in particular, the guy who could be making the biggest sacrifice and coming off the bench now, and Russell Westbrook, was for this move. I think he knew that possibility would be out there, that it would change minutes for him, that it would change his role, and he was for it. So I don't think it's nuts to think that it could start off with Terance Mann back in the starting lineup whenever he is healthy, next to James Harden, Kawhi, PG, and Zubats. It may not take that long, or those 10 to 15 game sample size of having Russ in the backcourt with James Harden. And look, we make too big of a deal out of who's starting versus who is finishing. And when that first guy goes to the bench early on in a ball game, it's not the biggest deal to me.
Interesting. I mean, that's fair. That's been the rhetoric for the Clippers since Marcin Gortat was the starting center, and he would play like an 8-minute shift and then just be like done with the game for the most part for important times. So I think the closing lineups, that's what I hope. That's what I'm going to be looking for mostly, because that's, when we slow down in the half court, James Harden is going to be out there. He's the guy you want running the half court offense when it's that bogged down playoff basketball.
James Harden is not just one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. He's one of the greatest playmakers in NBA history. That's quickly what Philadelphia learned, what Brooklyn learned. When he left the Houston Rockets, there was much less of, I got a call about this after game 1. And I actually tried to bring this up on a show recently, but you guys shouted me down and said we're not talking James Harden, which is weird now. But
that was because people on Twitter wanted to
give it to the angry mob.
Absolutely. Those people are lunatics.
Were they the same ones that wanted into a dome rock thrown through their window?
Yes, probably.
But I think what teams realized is, in leading the league in assists last season, just how much he can adjust his game. James Harden doesn't just dribble out the clock, and Charles Barkley would call him the dribbler, and play isolation basketball. He's a pick and roll god. He's going to make the game so much easier for Ivica Zubac and everyone. I mean, the main thing he's going to do is make the game easier for the 2-1-3 connection, to get the most out of them, to get your best chance to win a championship. It's getting the most out of Kawhi and Paul George. And I think the fit is going to be perfect next to James Harden on the offensive end there. Now, defensively, there could be issues because teams are going to try to pick on him. They're going to try to get cross matchups where they go at James Harden, who will likely also be guarding power forwards at times. So he's not on the perimeter and getting beat off the dribble there. But teams are going to hunt him. They're going to try to get switched onto him. His defense is also, I remember this happened in the 2020 All-Star game, the last good All-Star game. That was the one where they changed the rules.
We're talking All-Star games?
Well, James Harden got matched up in the post, I think, against Giannis Antetokounmpo. And guys were going hard. This was
was this the last, like, when they had to get to 107
this was
or
the
whatever?
Elam rules, the first situation with that quarter by quarter, and it played out great. And it was the most exciting All-Star game in a while. And they got what they wanted, and guys were playing hard late. And they were trying to go at James Harden in the post, and they couldn't move him. They couldn't do anything about it. I think it was Giannis Antetokounmpo who was going after him. And people also realize, oh, he's a really good post defender. And he has been for a while. He's obviously great at getting deflections, great at getting steals. Some of that is gambling, but it's his perimeter defense you worry more about. You get him in the post, James Harden is quality there.
Agreed. Totally agree with that. That is something that historically is, I think, a little overlooked in James Harden game, is that low post, that defense. Race Marlin has a very funny question I want to talk about. He said, are we worried about the black hole that PJ Tucker is offensively? I am not entirely. I don't think Ty Lue's worried about it, because it's not like, Marcus Morris towards the end was a kind of a black hole defensively. Rocco wasn't ever asked to do too much. These guys aren't. PJ Tucker is not going to be asked to do anything that necessitates, like, if the Clippers need his offense to win a game, things have gone horribly wrong.
Can you be a black hole on offense if you take less than 2 shots per game? That doesn't even make sense to me. He took 1.7 shot attempts per game last season with the Philadelphia 76ers. Black hole typically refers to a guy who gets the ball, has tunnel vision, and is looking for his shot and his shot only. It doesn't make anyone better around him. The problem with PJ Tucker on offense is just if teams are going to respect his shot in the corner, where he has always been deadly from distance, but that fell off last season. Those corner threes weren't necessarily there for him. He ended up shooting 40% on them, but he took less than 2 per game. Those 1.7 shots he took per game, they were only 3-pointers. All he does is take that corner 3-pointer. Right. So if he can get his confidence back there, shooting is the last thing to go, but he's 39 years of age now. That's going to be telling to see how effective he can be, because you can't have him. I guess if you're referring to a black hole as he gives you nothing offensively, and teams could just sag off of him and play off of him. And therefore, how could he and Russ and another non-shooter like Zubats be out there at the same time? Yeah, there's some worry, there's some concern, but we'll see. I've seen guys be rejuvenated as Clippers before. I'm interested to see what they can get out of PJ Tucker now. And his defense, from everything I've been seeing from Philly fans, is still very stout on that end.
He also isn't a complete he makes sound decisions usually when he's passing the ball. He doesn't exactly, you know what I mean? Like, his turnovers per game, he doesn't ever get the ball very much to turn the ball over, but it's not like he's, conceding a bunch of possessions. Kind of continuing this power forward talk, RR on the YouTube stream says, so are we trading Norm or someone else for a power forward? We're going to play this out. The Clippers talked about patience. Sure, they made the Harden trade in the middle of the night, but they're going to play this out. They want to, I guess, see some youth. Like, I'm not ruling it totally out that they maybe move Norm, but it's not going to be anytime soon. We're going to have like, I don't know if it's going to have to be like mission critical to trade Norm for a power forward or something like that, but I don't see it happening super soon. He's also had a great start to the season. We can't discount Norm's start to the season.
Yeah, and defensively he's been better too. His shot's been there early on. I'm interested to see, just, you mentioned the 10 to 15 game sample size that Coach Lue loves. Let's see that with this group. I don't think you need that big of a sense of urgency that, oh, we have to find that perfect power forward now when you have Terance Mann, PJ Tucker, and Amir Coffey. All those guys are more than serviceable at that position. Oh, and by the way, it could just be Kawhi Leonard playing a bunch more power forward. I think you're okay.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if it's as big of a need as some people are making it out to be, or just they look on paper and saw that we lost our three guys, our three power forwards, our three guys who were most suited to play that position. Well, they have other guys to make up for that.
And Morris was getting DNPs. Like, Morris was not going to play at all for the Clippers this year. Like, after some shit that happened, like, he wasn't going to play.
Yeah.
He was getting announced coach's decision DNPs, which I have never seen before on the injury report. Just like, yeah, he's not playing, coach's decision. Sorry.
The writing was on the wall for some time, but he was traded in the Malcolm Brogdon trade, and that fell through.
Right. He was already off the team. So Mike Dang, let's get into the real meaty discussion on Filip Petrusev. No, I'm just kidding. Optimus Prime Rib has a good question. He said, chances that Kawhi and or PG sign extensions now. L. Frank may have wanted assurances from them before pulling the trigger. I think they were always probably going to sign extensions. It's the amount of money that the issue is going to be. This is another sticking point for people who didn't want Harden, and one that I'm a little interested to see. Let's just say how it plays out is his status after the season. The Clippers have his bird rights, which is helpful if they want to make kind of a big splash. But I was already kind of pretty confident Kawhi and PG were going to get offered extensions. I'm not sure. I think Lawrence Frank maybe, already has a hunch they're going to do this because we also pulled the trigger without Terance Mann. So I'm not sure if the contract, I'm not sure if they shook hands and said, okay, we can finally do this trade. But I think it is a fair thought.
If anything, to me, the Clippers going all in like this with Harden tells you how confident they are in the health of those two guys this season and how Kawhi Leonard has looked so far. I don't think they make this all-in move if they didn't feel like Kawhi's back. He looks great out there. He's got more lift than ever on his three-point shot. That deep three he hit the other night from Steph Curry land was impressive. So they're doubling down. It's what we've been talking about all summer long. This is exactly what I wanted to see play out. It sucks to see guys leave. It's a tough business. That part of it's really hard, especially Nicholas Batum. He's one of my all-time favorite Clippers. He's got some of those Patrick Beverley vibes in a similar fashion for me, where he's just an all-timer because it's not just the skill, it's the heart, it's the relationship with the community and Clipper Nation. But if you want to win a championship, you had to make this move. It gets you closer. That was the question I kept asking. Does getting James Harden bring you closer to a championship, yes or no? If you say yes, then how do you not make the move? And this is, by the way, while we were still talking about would they have to give up Terance Mann. Guys, they didn't have to give up Terance Mann. That is a huge wrinkle to this. That's unbelievable. Everybody else is saying, if you saw last night, Fleeced was trending on X because
I don't get how this makes the Sixers any closer to a championship.
Well, they think they have the assets now to trade for another piece, I think is what it is, with those 2 first-round picks and some movable expiring contracts. I do think it makes them deeper, and that has some purpose during the regular season. We'll see how they use those guys, but they were trying to get enough assets just so they can flip them and turn it into another all-star type player to bring in with Joel Embiid. Who knows who they'll go after? I think the Chicago Bulls are going to be one of those teams that teams are looking at picking off of. Maybe Zach LaVine, maybe DeMar DeRozan, somebody like that. They could become available.
The Blazers, Jeremy Grant
in January.
You got a couple guys on that Blazers team who probably shouldn't be there for the Blazers.
And Malcolm Brogdon is still there. So
yeah. Funny, real quick, Patrick Beverley tweeted up. He said, damn, they traded Philip with an F. He loved Petrusev, which is very funny. So I don't know.
Has he played in the NBA yet?
He's played in Summer League. He was getting beat up by the Nets, and he went out and Pat Bev kind of defended him and stuff like that. So I do not think he's played in the NBA.
I think it also bears mentioning not just the relationship they have off the court. And we're talking about a bunch of guys now from Southern California, the 213 plus James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Norman Powell. But Russ had one of the best stretches of his career next to James Harden before the bubble, and he had a thigh injury before that long hiatus after
Mhm.
COVID shut everything down. He was playing some of the best basketball of his career when they leaned into that 5-out lineup, which I'm sure the Clippers are going to be utilizing at times with Coach Lou. Russ,
Timely.
there we go. Caesar, imagine the small ball lineup is going to be better than the Houston Rockets. James Harden and Russ are both older. They're not as good as they were then. They aren't as quick, quite as quick as they were then, although Russ looks pretty unbelievable. James has definitely lost a step. Can he still get by, guys? Can he still put up 40 on you in a playoff game? Yeah, we just saw it last season. But it's not as consistent with that dribble drive to where he was such an impossible guard because if you played up on him, he'd drive by you. If you played off of him, he'd have that step back 3-pointer. This also, by the way, gives the Clippers, I don't know where they rank right now. It seems like they've been better in this area through the 3 games, but free throw attempts per game has been an issue for them. That's going to go up. They're going
Yes.
to get more
I
easy
hope so.
shots, but also more easy points just getting freebies at the free throw line now, having James Harden. Regardless of what you think about his game and some of the ref baiting, whatever you want to call it, it's been effective for him in his career, you could say. We're talking about another top 75 player of all time, guys. Like, it's insane.
Will Updike, I will say Will Updike just texted me and said, that was 5 years ago, LOL, about the Russ Harden pairing.
I just said they were
He's
younger
at
then.
work, but he's contributing. No, I know. He's at work, but he's contributing. If you're new to this, by the way, it's usually 3 of us. Will Updike has to work. I should be working, but you know how it goes. Kinja wants to know, when is James going to make his debut? Today against the Magic? Probably not. Or tomorrow against the Lakers. I hope he doesn't make his debut against the Magic tonight just for his
Well,
health
that's doubtful.
and things like that. So probably against the Lakers. But then don't the Clippers have a bunch of time off after this
They
back-to-back?
have
Don't we
4 days
have?
off. They don't play again after Wednesday till next Monday. So I think
Right.
that actually played a big role in making this move now. It made sense. You get him in, get him acclimated, assimilated. You can get a few practices in. This is really the only dead spot outside of the All-Star break in the Clippers schedule. So
Fuck.
I'm sure that weighed on the front office's mind. If we're going to do it, now is the time to bring him in because we'll be able to get him in the building, have a little time to mesh
And
the
I
guys, and then play next
and
Monday for sure.
a bunch of people wanted this trade. You know, various people wanted a certain kind of trade to have for James Harden as soon as possible. We all kind of, we wanted it maybe before training camp. There was all that momentum right when the season ended, and then just kind of nothing about it. So this was the earliest they could make the trade, I guess, and they got it done 3 games in. It's like, I guess.
Well, if they had done it earlier, it likely would have cost them Terance Mann. That's how I see it. It was a negotiating tactic to
I like that
wait this
idea.
out.
I like that
And it
idea.
sounded like I caught something from Shams Charania earlier, who it looked like Philadelphia ownership group put pressure on Daryl Morey to have to make this move and get it
No
done.
shit. Yeah, that makes sense.
But from the Clippers' perspective, yeah, I think if you had done this months ago, the price would have been higher. The price tag would have been higher. It would have costed you more, and likely Terance Mann. I honestly, I don't think you can overstate how important it is that this team was able to keep Terance Mann in a trade for
Yeah.
James Harden. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. You want to talk about switchability and lineup combinations and having the perfect coach for that, and having this guy that's almost like a queen on a chessboard, and because of all the different moves you can make, in a way. What, you don't like
Okay.
that? You don't like the
No,
chess?
I didn't expect to hear. I did not expect to hear that
Well,
that analogy. I'm not mad at it. I would say I'm taken aback.
he can fill in the cracks wherever you need him. Like, for as much as people have complained about Terance Mann and not having a defined role, it's actually perfect to have him, especially on this newly constructed Clippers roster, because, oh, you need a guy in the backcourt tonight? Terance Mann. You need a guy in the front court now? Terance Mann. And he's been through this so many times, it's natural to him. It's innate. He's used to it, having to be this versatile guy. It's perfect. I I can't say enough about them holding on to Terance Mann in this move. This front office has been unbelievable. I mean, Lawrence Frank, executive of the year a couple of seasons ago. And also, this speaks to, once again, the Clippers, a destination franchise. They became that when they got Kawhi Leonard. They continue to be. I don't think people are appreciative enough of just the fact that guys want to come here now. Big time superstars, some of the greatest players of all time. And they wanted to come back home. And how cool would it be if a bunch of guys from SoCal got together and won the Clippers their first championship? That would be a pretty unbelievable story.
It would be nice. Stu Quinn is in the chat. Shout out Stu Quinn, one of the old listeners from the Locked On Clippers days. We would always, for some reason, do segments about his specific over-under win total bets. But he said, how much staggering do you guys expect? I feel like Lou can keep at least two of the big four on the court at all times. I mean, I think he could. We talked about this on the last episode, how it seems like, I think the word we saw on Twitter was Ty Lue is using Kawhi and PG to go on the court to just bludgeon opponents and then not stagger them as much. This changes it where I have no issue. I have no like disbelief that we're going to see at least two of these guys on the floor most of the time.
Yeah, and having either James or Russ out there running the show at all times keeps your offense a more well-oiled machine. Or Bones, by the way. He probably takes the biggest hit in some ways by this move, playing time-wise. But he also, Bones gets to learn now from Westbrook and James Harden. That's pretty great mentorship at the position. James is somebody that I really don't think he gets enough credit for his playmaking ability. I really don't. Like this guy sees stuff that nobody else does. He has a high basketball IQ, and it goes back to making players around you better because of that basketball intelligence and just making the right basketball play. And if you want to talk about playoff shortcomings, cool. He's never been on a team with this much stacked talent where he's had two wings like Kawhi and Paul George. I'm just saying, you want to go down that road, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because he hasn't had a situation like this going back to his OKC days where he was a completely different player there anyways, and he was so young. So he's back to being a third option like he was then, and he's going to be, I think, on his best behavior, at his best playing ability.
I'll tell you what, he's got to be. I think he will be. I know that you could probably find clips from four other teams saying exactly what I'm about to say, but I think he's going to do it this time. I think it's going to be great. I have no choice but to believe. That's the other part. The trade, for everyone who's upset the trade has happened, the trade has happened. We're here now. Let's hope the team wins, right? Like, I don't want anyone to lose their minds and be like, well, no, I'm never rooting for the Clippers. We got to hope they win, y'all. We wanted them to try shit. They're trying stuff. We kept Terance Mann. We're here for the ride. You've been a Clippers fan this long. If this is what gets you to stop being a fan, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I just don't see how with the former roster, without, and I said this before, somebody taking a big leap this season in Bones or Terance Mann, them being able to get through the gauntlet of 25 instances of 3 games in 4 nights this season, the 15 back-to-backs they're going to have.
17 games in March. This is where I know I harp on this so much on this podcast. 17 games in the month of March should be illegal. It should not be legal for any sport except maybe baseball, I guess. But like someone asked, do y'all see Westbrook on the bench to close games late in the season? In March, let's do it. We're going to need as many, like not bench, but like we're going to need all hands on deck, and whatever's working, let's do it. Russ might have the legs late. Maybe it's Bones, but like, I'm so worried about March. Every Clippers fan should be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm worried about November and December first, but yeah, I'm worried about March too. The schedule overall is just so brutal. I do think that played a role. I really do. I thought
Absolutely.
this
Had
schedule
to.
was much tougher than last season. I thought it was the ultimate Clippers got the short end of the stick schedule in their last
They
year at
said,
Crypto.com arena.
yeah. It was basically it's come out as like, I think Shams reported that of like, yeah, basically they were like, it's the last year. Fuck them. Like, that was kind of
What,
the
the Chappelle
mentality.
show, Kinkos? You know why? Because
Basically, yeah, I am the manager. That's what the Clippers had to deal with.
But James Harden, like I mentioned in a playoff series being able to get by. We already know there are going to be games where Kawhi and Paul George are missing games now in the regular season. We already know that's going
Totally.
to happen. If they play 65 plus, you'd sign up for that today. That would likely be best case scenario. Now you have James Harden to fall back on those nights. And yes, hopefully he can stay healthy too. He's had his own issues, hamstring, played, I think, 58 games last year, 65 games the year before. Looked to be in good shape at that training camp in Colorado with the Philadelphia 76ers, but we'll see. If he plays tomorrow
Yeah, the
night against the
Colorado training
Lakers,
camp.
then that'll say something about his conditioning, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Timothy Albanu, apologize if I butchered that. He said, hopefully this trade lets us dial back Westbrook minutes to 25 to 30 instead of 35 plus. Get maximum effort from Westbrook in shortened stints will be a plus. I think this does take some pressure off Russ a little bit in terms of just straight up minutes. We now have two guys who, if they're not on the court together, can run point very adequately, if not very well, for this Clippers team. So I like this trade for Russ's legs too. I like where Tim's head's at on this one.
Yeah, I expect minutes to go down across the board. You're saving more legs now in the regular season. We talked about Harden being a regular season innings eater this summer. What
Mm-hmm.
he could do like a starting pitcher, like Lance Linney, or who was the Dodger starter? Who am I thinking of that gave up all the home runs in this season and in Game 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks? Lance
Oh, I don't
Lynn.
want to talk
Lance
about
Lynn, yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. We
Well,
got
part of the
Lind on
reason they
that
brought
one.
him in was because they needed someone to soak up some innings. Now, Harden, it's not a fair comparison because he's such a high level player, but
Yeah, let's not compare James Harden to Lance Lynn.
it's comparing the innings eating and what you need him for
Yeah.
during the regular season. And James Harden can win you games in a similar fashion like we saw with Russ last season in that game against the Memphis Grizzlies, where he had that throwback MVP type performance, took over, no Kawhi, no Paul George. I think he had 36 and hit something like 5 3-pointers or 6 3-pointers. There are going to be nights where guys are out and James Harden just wins you the ball game now. Like, this is the path to being a top 3 seed. Getting in James Harden now, it is on the table. And without that, they'd have to make history by being one of those rare fluky teams that wins the championship, like the 95 Houston Rockets, when you're not a top 3 seed. And by the way, Houston had just won the year before, so they had the pedigree, they had the experience. The Clippers have never won, obviously. And James Harden, I think, makes them better today. And that's what's most important. He gives you an opportunity, a better opportunity to win a chip. That's what this entire era is about. That's what Steve Ballmer is about, trying to win them their first championship.
I mean, we got the new arena. Someone in the chat was like, remember, they got the new arena opening. And I'm like, I don't think anyone's forgetting that.
Oh, for real? New arena?
When?
What's it called?
Timothy Albanu also asked, shout out Tim for the questions. Does this trade and lack of available players increase the chance that Kawhi and PG played them today and tomorrow for both? I still think they're going to see how they feel after the game. That's what Ty Lue said. I don't think this changes it. If they're not feeling good after what's going to be a hard-ass game against the Magic, I'm totally fine with, maybe not putting them out there on the back-to-back.
It takes
against Lakers.
The burden off of two injury-prone superstars from having to push themselves unnecessarily too much in regular season games just to scratch out victories, and therefore wearing them out before the playoffs even start. That was always a concern of mine coming into this season. As much as, yes, you need to take the regular season seriously, but if to do that, it ends up affecting you in the playoffs, there's a downside to it. So there was never this perfect middle ground for the Clippers to find a way to balance out managing the regular season and still being a top 3 seed while also keeping your stars healthy for the playoffs. Now they have that because they can rely on James Harden so much to get the job done and be an innings eater during the regular season. And it's going to leave fresh legs for Kawhi and Paul George, who are going to be your main two guys and closers in 7-game series.
Stu Quinn is excited for some coffees for closers. We're all excited for the puns to come back. He has sacrificed a lot for his career to stay with this team. It's been pretty incredible to see. So maybe Amir can he might be another kind of reclamation project, even though he's already been on the team, to your point. Adam, he's a guy whose career could get a little more juice now.
And that contract that we talked about when they gave it to him, that was a steal. It may look like even more of a team-friendly contract if he's getting 15, 20 minutes a night now all of a sudden. Amir is he's very reliable. I know he didn't shoot the ball that great last season, put on some size. Maybe it affected his shot. But he's somebody that I trust because he can play multiple positions. And I thought he was very consistent when they needed him to be a couple of seasons ago when the Clippers were without Kawhi so much, without Paul George, who only played, I think, 31 games in that 21-22 season. I like this freeing up a spot for Amir Coffey, who we've been talking about as one of the unsung guys that kind of flies under the radar now just because they had too much depth.
Mm-hmm. Clipper Raider, tough fandom there right now, said definitely don't want Bones minutes to go down, which I'm sure it will. I mean, we're here with Adam Oslin, the leader of the skeleton key army, as I think we should call it.
Say it with your chest.
The leader of the skeleton key army. His minutes are going to go down, but he said all the right things for the most part. I think he's going to be fine. He's still whatever shakes out. Currently, he's still the backup point guard, right? Like as far as we see it, he's still number 2. So his minutes are going to go down, but his status on the team, if he gets hot, Ty Lue's going to let him do his thing. Like I think Bones is going to be okay if he can really keep showing this kind of maturity is not the right word. That feels too heavy-handed, but I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Progress.
The clarity, progress, the just understanding, feet on the ground, understanding where he's at in the situation he's in. I'm excited to see him grow. And hey, again, there's going to be plenty of Bones at certain points this season. The skeleton key will be used.
Yeah, you mentioned it before that in March, Bones was going to be the guy that had to be the innings eater, that was going to play a lot.
Yeah.
I still think he's going to get plenty of time out there and easier shots now with James Harden. There are going to be nights where Bones is still cooking, where he's still looking just like he did at the beginning of the season when he was getting more minutes. When there's nights where Kawhi and Paul George can't go, I expect him to play more. I think Bones is still going to be very valuable for this team. It sounds almost counterintuitive because you bring in a guy that plays his position and that is used to playing 35 minutes a night. I understand that, but I just think Bones is too good to keep off the court. Like he's played himself into a role where I think he's allotted a certain amount of minutes every night, no matter what. And like you said, Coach Lue loves riding the hot hand.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to Ty Lue getting to figure this shit out.
If there's anybody that
wanted this trade, right? If there's anyone that, the question marks aren't as big of an issue yet. More so, I'm just excited to see everyone together. I want Terance Mann to be healthy. He is out of the walking boot, which is great for the ankle. So once everyone gets coalesced, I'm really looking forward to this.
I would encourage Clipper Nation to go back to like this one of the 16 games that Kyrie, Harden, and Kevin Durant all actually got to play together. I think 2 of them ended up happening against the Clippers, of course. They looked unbelievable. Even though they had a minimal amount of time on the court next to one another, it worked. It was easy. The transition between those 3, because they're great basketball players that can do everything. Well,
yeah,
James Harden, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, there's some similarities there. I expect them not to have to take that long or not take that much of a learning curve for them to figure things out on the court, because James Harden is an unreal number 1 playmaking type ball handler that you can have in this league. And people think he's just a dribbler and a scorer, and it's not true. And I think a lot of people are going to change their mind on James Harden that are Clipper fans, just like they did about Russell Westbrook.
DJF Music Productions, I think he's DJF_Primal on Twitter, has been on the Let's Get James Harden trade, I don't know, since the beginning. He says the staggering of the 4 stars is going to be huge and every role player is still going to be fine. He's guaranteeing it. So if this doesn't happen, go to DJF Music Productions. He guaranteed it. I don't know what he's giving you if things don't work out. But also, Adam, I know you're going to hate this. I Googled James Harden astrology chart just for fun. And
I'm big on zodiac signs. What do you mean?
We might have to bring some people on to break down how this really all interacts with the Clippers, because I'm dying at the thought of that being a main factor. What is there anything else? I feel like I just want to see him play now. Like this whole I'm done freaking out. I've had reservations about this trade. We made it. We're here now. I just want to see everyone play now.
They didn't have to give up both their first-round picks. They only had to give up one, and they didn't have to give up Terance Mann. That is
keeping the 2030 is crazy.
Win for this team. They won the negotiation. They did.
And keeping that 2030 pick, just, hey, it'll probably be the 30th pick in the draft, but let's say it's not. It's nice to have that still.
Yeah. And it sounds like,
and we always make deals for 2nd-round picks. We always buy them because they cost like $68,000 or whatever that weird equation says.
Well, it's amazing to me that the same people that say the Clippers never draft well also want to keep their first-round picks. It's like, which is it, guys?
Very good point.
But no, I am very excited for this. James Harden, because of the way he has shown to play the game the last couple of seasons with Brooklyn, with Philadelphia, the little small adjustments he has made to his game that I think are championship type of adjustments you have to make later in your stage of your career, and playing with high-end talent like Joel Embiid, KD, and Kyrie. He's also, I think, in that mode where he knows he needs to be that playmaker and defer more. And that's what you're going to see. The full potential of 2-1-3 will be unlocked with James Harden.
They will. What's the nickname for this 4? The SoCal 4? What are we calling them?
Ooh, that's a good question. We'll get there. Wait till it plays out on the court. Carlo Jimenez may come up with it.
Yeah, that's a good call. And you guys are going to be, the Clippers play tonight. Speaking of Carlo Jimenez, you guys are going to be over on AM 570 pre and post game, right?
6:30 pregame. Clippers taking on a plucky. Is that what you called them? Orlando Magic team, Chuck?
Yes, plucky Orlando Magic team. They're a good team.
They are.
They've played all Western Conference teams to start the season, which I think is very weird. You'll be on AM 570. I have to go trick-or-treating with my nephews in 20-degree weather. But the games start later here, so I should be good to go on the radio after that one.
Okay, so Chuck Mockler just invited himself on post game. That's cool. He just booked himself.
Yeah,
Clips and double dip tonight. Check it out on Clipper Talk.
And then we should have full pod with Will Updike, our other fantastic co-host here on Thursday, talking maybe James Harden's debut and how it went against the Lakers.
We got a couple of nicknames being submitted right here. Cali Boys, LA 4-Way, LA Finest.
LA Finest. We can't make it LA Orient, because I mean, it's like Palmdale, you got Moreno Valley. Not technically.
It's a bunch of SoCal guys.
Hairs.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
All right, I have to go work. I'm getting emails.
Yeah, I gotta go
and whatnot. Thank you to everyone who came through. Oscar Orozco is asking, where are the smiles? You're about an hour late, buddy. Go ahead and rewatch it at the start. We're feeling pretty solid now. We will be back with the double dip tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. And hey, as always, let's go Clips. I'm going to click end stream. There's going to be a couple seconds of awkwardness. So